If you already know how to play Cascadia and are looking to improve, refine, and level up your gameplay, this strategy guide will give you the next steps in dominating. This is Cax with Legendary Tactics. Cascadia is arguably the up-and-coming game of the past year, and many are turning to it as a new chapter in board gaming. I'm going to teach you today how to take your gameplay up a notch with 10 tips on how to win Cascadia. First, be flexible. Cascadia is absolutely not a game for those who've rigid mindsets or are unwilling to move off of a point. Those kinds of players will not only find Cascadia extremely painful, but I think will lose much more than they win with it. Flexibility is the #1 skill Cascadia demands. Due to the variable nature of both tiles and hexes you may get on your offering, you need the ability to pivot from perhaps going from a salmon strategy to quickly backtracking to a fox scoring point. Second, cast a wide net. Do not let yourself be stuck waiting for an elk or bear token to come up as your only way to finish a certain piece of your tableau. Rather, keep a wide range of both animals and land options available to yourself. This will ensure a lot more flexibility when you're drawing hexes or grabbing tiles from the tile bag. Next, move quickly. Believe it or not, 20 rounds happens pretty fast. You need to move as quickly as possible on the strategy you plan to take for the game, and of course pivot if the hexes or animal tiles aren't going your way. So, be mindful that the time is actually faster than you think. For those enjoying this video, perhaps you can give our channel a subscribe and the bell a ring for more content just like this. Getting back to our list. Keep an eye on animal tokens in play. If you start noticing a lot of bear tokens on other players' boards and tableaus, then shifting away from a bear strategy is pretty wise. There's going to be less bears in the draw bag, and therefore less opportunity for you to draw a bear. Next, have a rough plan. Start the game with a general sense of where your tiles and tokens want to take you, realizing of course that this could, and most likely will, look very different when final scoring rolls around. But be aware of a general starting point for your board. Speaking of final scoring, don't forget about the bonus tiles available for the taking on the habitat domination tiles. Keep a close scouting eye on what your fellow players are up to, ceding them the territories you know you won't be able to get, meanwhile ensuring you can eke them out on the ones that are up for grabs. Next, don't get tunnel vision. I've mentioned it before indirectly, but higher level players will absolutely not just be focused on their own habitat build, but rather on the build and offerings each player has currently as well. This might be the hardest rule to master of all, as keeping tabs on just even your own build is often no small chore. Don't be afraid to use the pine cones. The pine cones are a very precious commodity indeed, as they can offer some endgame VPs. But using your pine cones in-game to ensure the perfect tile or the perfect hex are picked can pay for the pine cone in spades. Don't feel as if the pine cones need to be saved up for that end game, but see them as tools to ensuring the best picks possible are being placed, especially if by using them you're scoring more than the single point the pine cone would have given you. That said, you need to be mindful that most likely you will be getting between 3 to 5 pine cones throughout the game, so if you're down to only 1 pine cone, use it as needed, but be sure and comfortable that you may not have another for a turn or two. Watch your pace. Don't be afraid to slow the pace of the game down if you need. There are so many options to consider in this game and so little time, at least from the games I played. The pace can become fairly frenetic. If you need more time to think, take it. The worst thing you can do is to misplay a hex or an animal token due to a rushed feeling of, I've got to get this played somewhere on the board. That said, try not to grind the game to a halt if you could help it. Last, watch your hex placement. This seems obvious in itself, but there's a fair bit of thought that needs to be put into the hex placement. First, animals that are featured on it. How are those animals relating and connecting with the adjacent hexes as far as animal scoring? Then there's the habitat on the hex you're laying, and how it connects to the adjacent hexes as well. I generally default to ensuring the animals as being the #1 priority, but there are other schools of thought on this. Whether you're just starting out or have played Cascadia many times, I hope these tips have come in useful for you. If you have other great tips or strategy, please comment below. I'd love to hear from you and refine my own gameplay even further. And this has been Legendary Tactics.